Hello everybody, it's Claymore here and welcome back to the channel. Today I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing Rumble, one of the game designers over on the Jaeger development team. Asked him a bunch of questions about Season 3, certain features in Season 3, a lot of the intentions behind it and some background stuff too. The interview was done over on my Twitch channel. I live streamed it, so that's why you'll see some of the alerts pop up here and there. But if you do like the video, make sure you do all that good stuff, like, comment, subscribe, all of it. And yeah, enjoy the video. With that being said, let's get some introductions out the way and done with already. Rumble, introduce yourself, mate, and tell us a bit about your past in game development.
Sure. So my real name is Mando, but the community just knows me as Rumble. I'm game designer on the Cycle Frontier. I need to stop saying activities team because we don't have that team structure anymore. So used to saying that. But yeah, I'm game designer on the Cycle Frontier. My primary focus at the moment are campaigns, along with some progression stuff, and I also take a big part of like the in-game events, like the storm divers going on right now, and just general activities on the planet, such as the storm, evac, meteors, you know, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and before that, I worked on a game called Iron Harvest, which is an RTS. It's basically Company of Heroes with big ass mechs.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you played it?
So I haven't played it myself, but I've actually seen it on Steam a couple times, and I actually have a friend who played it a lot when it like first came out and stuff. So you ring a bell there for sure.
Yeah. So it's very different to the Cycle, obviously, but yeah. Now I'm on the Cycle and I'm having a lot of fun. It's like the most awesome game to be working on, honestly, as a designer.
I believe it. I mean, I think obviously I've got not much experience in development myself, but I mean, you just look at Cycle's past and how far it's come and all the transformations it's gone through, and another one coming through for Season 3. You know, like, I mean, I think that just with the history alone, it makes the game way more interesting to work on, you know? Definitely. And,
it's just I keep saying it, like, we've had a couple technical bumps, but just in terms of what the game is at its core, we have the coolest foundation I could possibly wish for from a design perspective. We can do anything we want with the game, and it's really cool.
I mean, that's it. Creative freedom, really, with it. And, you know, I think the absolute core foundation, like you said, has been set now. And, I mean, the way my mind kind of reels with the possibilities of what can be done is the same way back in my youthful days when I was none the wiser, same with Tarkov almost, you know, like, you know, there was a lot that can be done, and a lot of ability to be able to do whatever you want within it. And more importantly, the setting is nearly as restrictive. You know, it's not gonna like.
Oh, we can. Yeah, we can do anything. Like,
do whatever you want, man.
Yeah, we can do an underwater map. We can make players drop onto an asteroid. We can make a dense jungle. We can make a zero gravity map. We can do whatever we want.
Exactly. I mean, then, like I said, you can do an entirely new planet at some point and just drop us on there and say this is good luck.
Yeah.
But yeah, so cool, brilliant. I mean, yeah. So next question we're going to be moving up to now. So I think we'll get the biggest one out the way and done with first. And I think it came to a surprise to, I would say, most of us that the game went and shifted into a no-wipe format. And I think this caught a lot of people off guard. Some of us were you know, a little bit apprehensive, I guess you could say, because we look at any other game that's done this, and we see the wipe formats, and they've always seemed to work. You know, people come back for a wipe, they play for a few months, and they die down a bit. Content will come out, etc. But a lot of us were also quite interested and intrigued because, I mean, myself personally, I had the apprehensive reaction first, but then I thought to myself, well, yeah, but you know, things have been done in Cycle that not other developers have done yet. You know, and there's innovation to be done here, and there's almost like a lesson to be made here. So, but that aside, what were the main motivations to shift over into a no wipe format, and how long were you guys kind of like brewing it up for in reference to Season 1, Season 2, or even the closed betas?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's advantages and disadvantages to wiping system. it gives and then wiping gives us a lot of control over what we want to do with the economy of the game, and to a certain extent it keeps
stop being a bitch
the
about
content
it.
that you already have
Whoa.
semi-replayable. Not really, but at least it's it makes players it gives players an even playing field to re-experience the content again and again. And but there's also some downsides, right? For example, one thing that we kept reading in our Steam reviews was that players were that couldn't put in so much time just couldn't experience all of our content within the time frame of a wipe, and extending the wipe to like a year or something like that was also not really an option. And like there's quite a few of these sort of downsides to a wiping economy. And weighing those against like the upsides of it, we kind of felt that stuff, for example, giving people an even playing field, or like what's the English word, a level playing field, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
That's, for example, in theory, that's something we can also just do with really good matchmaking. We can also like that whenever you jump into the game, people who are going to start playing the cycle in a year from now, if our matchmaking works as intended, then in theory they will also, be matched with other people who are at their level and who don't outperform them massively. So we really looked at all the pros and cons, and ultimately it's a lot of effort, and we had to do a lot of changes to the economy, for example, that will go live in season 3. And it might not be perfect at first, but I'm pretty sure that in the long run we will benefit from it. Just in general, people being able to play without the stress of like a wipe cycle breathing down their neck.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, when I took part in the discussions before about wipe versus no wipe, I will say that, for example, I think a wipe cycle especially has to rely on a very reliable drip of content. So there has to be something good, new, and digestible, ready for the new wipe. And I do feel like a lot of games that do adopt the wipe cycles and stuff like that, I do feel like the majority of the time, that's not that kind of like condition almost isn't really quite met. And we see this with other games. So sometimes we get a map. Sometimes we'll get a couple new guns for the entire season. Sometimes we'll get some content drops, throughout the wipe or patches or whatever. But for the most part, it is a tricky and challenging kind of quota to meet. It's almost like you're re-releasing the game over and over and over again. So I get that.
I mean, we're still gonna have seasons, and we're still gonna make sure that every season puts like a little twist on the existing gameplay, on the existing content.
Yeah.
We're definitely gonna be adding new guns and new mechanics and new activities and new maps and new missions. That's gonna happen either way. The only meaningful difference is that we have a little bit less control of the economy, but we're willing to take on that responsibility for the sake of the family father who's got fucking 18 kids for some reason and just cannot play like 3 hours a day, which is what some games expect you to do if you want to experience all the content within it.
Definitely, man. Yeah. And I think that as well, the regarding to the economy, like you said, about it not being perfect. So I think this is where a lot of people tended to have kind of like misinterpreted exactly how the economy works. So in order for there to be an actual economy, there has to be interaction with that economy, right? On a quite a wide scale, so you can really kind of fine tune it. You can't really do that in like things like focus test bills, PTRs, and stuff like that. You can get a kind of like a very like a small glimpse, you can get kind of like a vibe for it, but there's not really a way to really kind of like get that economy fine tuned and in the place it needs to be until it's out there, So
yeah, that's one of the big challenges of game development, is that all we can do is theorize how things will behave in the player's hands, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, nothing's ever going to be 100% perfect when we put it live. I think it's much more important, if we want to be a really good developer, I think it's much more important to just really make sure that we listen to the community and we make them feel heard, and we just build that trust of like, whatever it is, we're gonna fix it. Like what the Forge did to the economy in season 2, for example. that kind of stuff happens. It happens in every single live game ever, and it's fine. We just need to fix it. That's like the magical, the silver bullet, I suppose.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I will say as well, I think that for the most part, I think Jaeger are a relatively new team in terms of tackling this kind of format and stuff like that. You guys had obviously a lot of time spent on the old format, the cycle, and obviously you're taking stuff from that and put it into this extraction format. But at the end of the day, it's not like all the big game development companies that we know and love. They started immediately perfect. You know what I mean? Like the general thing is like I look at every dev team that I really do enjoy playing their games, but I look at their history. I mean, one example, for me, I always use these guys as a reference is Larian Studios, who make Divinity Original Sin. They're working on Baldur's Gate 3 right now. I watched a documentary on how they kind of came to this place, and I tell you what, underdogs of the century. Like in terms of just the amount of just hard times they had, games that worked, games that never worked, and then they finally kind of just got the formula right, with Divinity. It's the same thing. Yeah. Same thing can be applied to anything. It's all about knowledge and kind of like going through the motions, definitely.
The games industry is pretty rough, right? Behind one game that really makes it big, you have like 10,000 failed games easily. So we're now in the situation basically that the success we had during the beta and during season 1 kind of proved that the formula works and the people want our game, and now we just need to basically deliver on it and consistently, because we're quote unquote competing with, or we're in the same sector or in the same market as games that have been out for like 5 years or 7 years, so I would say for the amount of time that Cycle has been live, which is like 2 seasons now, we're already in a pretty good spot, but we need to keep it up.
Yeah, I mean, not to reference it too much or so, but there's a lot of issues happening with Tarkov right now, a lot of development hiccups and stuff like that, a lot of community frustrations, and this is a perfect time for really kind of like you said, to deliver and really kind of like push this game out there. Right then, so this is going to be something a bit more specific to your role, because obviously you're working on campaigns and stuff like that and storylines and everything. So I've got a couple questions myself, just to kind of like throw in there at the end. But generally speaking, we did get a chance to trial out a bunch of the campaign changes in the PTR. And I wanted to ask you a bit more in detail. In comparison to, let's say, the state of how they are currently in Season 2, what were the main changes or the main intentions that you wanted to do with the campaigns, and how did you act them out?
Yeah, I finally, essentially, the changes from Season 2 to Season 3 to on a quality level are really, really big, because just the net benefit of it. Because what I ended up doing, what I finally got around to doing, was that I went through the entire campaigns, all like whatever 200 missions that we have, and I just reduced points of frustration. I listened to community a lot. I gathered a lot of feedback on like, hey, which I don't know, if I think I even asked that in your chat once, which are the most annoying missions for you guys? And then I just gathered like the info on it, and I realized, holy shit, people really, really don't like being forced to do uplinks as part of the campaigns, or at least consecutive uplinks. Stashing. It's oversaturated with dead drop missions, right? The campaigns, and I think these things still have a place in our game, but they need to be sprinkled in, not dense.
Definitely.
And also just in general, like reducing repetition was a big theme of the past. So when the prospectors will get their hands on the campaigns in Season 3, again, not going to be perfect. There's still going to be 1 or 2 missions that people hate, but overall it should feel much better, and there should be much less repetition and much less moments of unnecessary frustration. So basically what I did is I went through the campaigns, and just a random example, one mission that people unanimously were like, let's maybe doesn't feel great, was like stashing grenades in swamp for like the audio decoys.
Yeah.
Thing. Now that mission is replaced by find the plans for the audio decoys somewhere at I don't remember where this.
It's the tall house. The tall house in
the tall house. Yeah.
Rock Balls. Yeah.
So that's what I meant by the net benefit. Like the net improvement in quality is insane because I took the most annoying missions and replaced them by these particularly cool, unique missions with unique items, unique locations, and so I'm pretty happy with the change for season 3. In addition to that, also obviously there's a new Howler quest line, and then the Howler has been worked into the existing campaigns as like hunting missions, deliver its items, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I mean, I think during the PTR, I think I started dipping my toes into the very first Howler quest lines, and there's one thing I did like, and that's how actually I'm not sure if I just grinded hard or not, but they showed up quite early, the Howler quest lines, and I did like that because, and then this is a bit of the feedback I posted from the PTR, is that it's almost like for a new player, it's a very intimidating looking quest line. Talking about the Howler, the new boss, and you're starting to investigate it. But then you see, like, obviously with the end of the task line rewards at the end, they see that cool little piece of armor or bit of equipment, and that's something for them to work towards and get excited about. Definitely.
I can quickly just comment on the Howler quest line.
Sure.
One of the many challenges of designing the campaigns for the cycle is knowing what we want to be exposed to the player when, and what we want the player to actually, like, what challenges we actually want the player to overcome when.
Yeah.
So the Howler quest line is a pretty good example because I really made sure that players unlock it early and get in contact with the existence of the Howler early, because it's a new big thing in season 3, right?
Yeah.
But then they do a couple easy missions that just tell you what on earth the Howler is, and then you have basically a progression gate, which is reach level 10, I think.
Yeah.
Or level 8 or something like that.
It's 8 or 10.
With Osiris with Osiris to make sure that now you know what the Howler is, but you're not ready for it yet. Come back later, and then you're asked to kill it. So it's pretty cool. I think it works quite well.
Yeah, and like I said, that was definitely a good way to handle it too. I mean, like you said, it's not just that the Howler is a new thing in the cycle. It's going to be there when they drop. At some point, it's going to be there present, and they're going to wonder what the hell am I supposed to do with this? Like, do I shoot it with my pistol? Like, what do I do with it? Yeah, definitely. I mean, personally, for me, I think the Howler is it's interesting because the majority of the time that I have kind of like playtested a new AI type or whatever, majority of the time it comes out on its first day and it's like, oh yeah, this needs work. This needs some work. But with the Howler, with the animations and its behavior, we had, obviously, like you said, there's a few hiccups with it, but I mean, it felt already so fleshed out in terms of it. At the very least, it's combat patterns and stuff. I know there's been some more tweaks made for it throughout the testing period and stuff, but I mean, I'm very much looking forward to the final version of the Howler, and the biggest takeaway for me with the Howler, funnily enough, was actually fighting other players underneath the Howler. It's not so overpowering that you have to focus on the Howler first in order to deal with the player, but it's almost like adding another layer of like dancing around the Howler in order to deal with the player. I will say that really fine point there was really, really nice. It was a nice touch in my opinion, just like a small aside there.
I'm a big fan of systemic, sandboxy game design.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of just the idea of running around Lagoon or whatever, because you're looking for that camera drone, whatever, and you see a player just mining under a waterfall, and then you start fighting each other, and all of a sudden the Howler hears this and comes rushing towards you, and then the whole the rule set of this fight changes. Your gun might be all of a sudden useless in that scenario because you need to run around way too much for it. That kind of stuff. Or the fact that you suddenly remember that you had some audio decoys, and that becomes super valuable. It's like I'm really big fan of this.
And that's something as well a lot of people have been talking about is the value of audio decoys going up because of the Howler. And that's good because I mean the decoys themselves were not used very, very often. You'd hear them used occasionally. But then you'd know straight away what they were, at least a veteran player would know. But now with the Howlers and the action, and you go to any of the maps, you might want to keep one on you just in case you need to make a quick exit. draw its attention away, you know? For sure, man, for sure. Right then, moving on to the next question. So this is going to be a bit more of a bit of a lengthier one, but for the most part, it's just going to be kind of like going over the general new things coming with Season 3. So we talked a bit about the Howler already, so we don't have to worry too much about that. But one of my own little linking questions onto the Howler before I move on to the other stuff is, will we be seeing potentially new AI types within Season 3 at some point? Will we be seeing like maybe one thing I really wanted to see, for example, is an enemy type that only pops up during storms, like a really agile version of the Marauder, you know, like a really not so strong, not so tanky, but it moves much quicker, relies on ambushing, hitting and running and stuff. Like anything we might be expecting there soon?
So I'm not aware of any plans for new AI types during Season 3, but I do agree with like the sort of the fantasy that you just went for, which is like this. I think the storm doesn't have enough of an impact on creatures. I think
Agreed.
I think the storm is probably the mechanic with the most untapped potential in the game for me personally right now, because it is just a core part of the game's fantasy, the game's narrative, and could be mechanically just like, as I said, like the systemic sandboxy nature of our game could be really interesting. Like I really would personally, just not something we're working on right now, but personally I would really like to get to a place where the storm meaningfully affects, you know, the storm starting or coming rolling in meaningfully affects everything you're doing on the planet right now.
Yeah.
With its own upsides and downsides, its own risks and opportunities. So it's definitely stuff that we want to do in the future. What exactly we're going to do during Season 3, I can't say yet, because right now we really just want to put this live, see how it feels in the player's hands, and see what's missing. But definitely not out of the question.
Yeah, cool. I mean, it's like we said earlier, we can do pretty much anything you guys want to with it. And, you know, especially with, and this is something I push for quite a lot, and I'm still going to keep pushing for. Obviously, we've been checking out the Forge and stuff, and we know that it has certain abilities to mess with the perspectives, or like you know, brains basically of lesser weak-willed prospectors and stuff. And you know, seeing some cultists pop up here and there just to mess with us, or seeing them patrol certain areas of the maps, like, you know, I mean, and then they can do whatever they want during the storm and stuff like that. But linking to the storm, Feralis had an amazing idea to kind of like utilize the storm on different maps in order to access the Forge in your own time, rather than waiting for the storm. And he mentioned like a deployable kind of like a storm charge pylon kit you could put in certain areas of the maps that have the most storm activity, and you essentially would charge up like cores. And this would be essentially similar to an uplink. It would generate noise, it would attract creatures and stuff, and you'd fight them off, and then you charge like an item 1, 2, 3 times, and then you'd be able to use this item charges over at the Forge to kind of like craft outside the storm. Like, I agree with you though, that more needs to be done with the storm. And as an aside, I'd love it if we have the event storms, but like throughout the entire season. I really would like that, because the storms.
What do you like about the event storms?
Well, the visibility for a start. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think that the lesser visibility during a storm, I know that I remember my initial kind of like reaction to it, and it's like, this is scary as hell. I can't see where I'm going. I had to put my gun away to get a flashlight out if I didn't bring a flashlight in my gun. This is really intimidating. But it's also really cool because you look up and you see like all the storm or across the sky and stuff. It's a really pretty storm. But I think that in terms of the visibility, a really nice sweet spot's been hit with it for the event. And with the frequency of the lightning strikes too, I think for the event purposes, I think it's fine as it is. I don't think I'd like to see not like the lesser amount of lightning strikes throughout the entirety of the storm. Keep the intensity at the peak. But I mean, if we can get those storms for the entirety of Season 3, and then tweaking with however you'd like to after feedback and stuff like that, I think that'd be really cool, personally.
Yeah, I mean the visibility, the visibility that we improved for the event has been very well received. And who knows? Maybe it's already in Season 3. Maybe I'll never do it. I don't know.
Cross your fingers, guys. Cross your fingers, because yeah.
You never know with these pesky devs. You know?
Yeah, dude, these devs, the fickle buggers. I tell you what. But yeah, so yeah,
gotta wait for the patch notes.
Yeah.
What do you want me to say?
Oh man, that's gonna be.
No. All jokes aside, I already submitted the improved visibility for season 3. So season 3 is gonna have better storm visibility.
Excellent. There you go. You heard it. You heard it, guys. We're gonna be getting better visible storms for season 3. That's a big thing for me.
I told you, we're listening. Just a bit of trust, bit of time, and game's gonna get fucking awesome.
Oh hell yeah, man! Well, that's already a great bit of news. So yeah, obviously a little bit of an aside there of well time spent. But so let's talk about the other features for season 3. So the main things I wanted to talk about. There's a lot in season 3, so I'm not going to go through all of it. But the main things I wanted to talk about, for the most part. Because I think there was a bit of confusion around this particular one, this particular feature, and that's MK1 and MK2 guns. Now, I think I know the intention behind this. Before the viewers at home and any new players that might be wondering, what was the intention behind the MK1 and MK2 gun system, and like what are the plans to kind of like push those going forward with like new guns and stuff to come?
Yeah, so small disclaimer before I answer this. I'm not the driving designer on this, but I understand why we're doing it, and I'm all for it, and I can comment on it, but again, I'm not the person in charge of this.
Of course.
So the MK weapons are essentially just the idea of gun variants, which is something that pretty much every game out there does. Like if you look at Hunt Showdown, how many Winfields do they have?
True.
And in our game, what I think the biggest value of these is that we can basically fill gaps in our power curve. So, for example, snipers have been in a super annoying place for a while in terms of power curve, because if your playstyle is snipers or like long range combat, then you have the bolty and then nothing for a while.
Yeah.
And then maybe a KBR, but is that a sniper? I don't know. And then it's like it's tricky. But with a bolty MK2, which is just a better version of the bolty, you have something to upgrade to, something to look forward to, and also just overall variety in the game. Like even though I'm really really happy with the amount of content we have in the game, considering how young the game is. I think we have a really cool amount of content when we're talking about maps and stuff like that, and skins and the world building, and all of this is super sexy in the game. I think we have a bit of work or a little bit of untapped potential when it comes to like just the arsenal in our game, the tools available to the player. So this is obviously not gonna, like, doing gun variants doesn't mean that we're not gonna make entirely new guns, it's definitely something we want to do.
Yeah.
It's just that we would not have been able to add a new gun for season 3 at all. So this is already something, to bolster our arsenal a little bit and to give this feeling of variety a little bit more. And I think just on a personal note, I don't know if we're planning on doing this. Just my opinion, but I think now that we have established the idea of gun variants, I think we can do really cool shit with it. Like we can do, I don't know, unique signature gun variations. Like you find Badham's old guarantee or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Or we can do, we can make the variants more meaningful, right? Like maybe we'll do a poopy version of a Zeus beam that I don't know, it has a 4x scope on it that you cannot remove or something. I don't know. Random example. I think we can do some pretty cool stuff with this in the future, now that we've established this as like a thing in the game.
Yeah. I mean, I can just imagine a crappy Zeus beam, like rather than the beam going straight on, it kind of just goes like that after a while. I can imagine that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, fair enough. I mean, I will say that not just for just having more variation in the game, it gives us a reason to go out and loot a bit more. Loot those lockers, loot those weapons crates and stuff in key rooms. Because at the end of the day, the MK2 guns, to my knowledge, are only foundable in Raid, right?
I'm pretty sure that is currently the plan. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean,
with the exception, I'm not sure what the current intention is, but that's a cool thing. As soon as we have more content, we can make it accessible in different ways, right? I would
Yeah.
be totally fine with having some guns in the faction shops, and they cost a lot of scrip. Some guns, some variants you can only get if you complete certain quest lines. You know, there might be one variant that you can literally only get at the end of the Crusher dungeon. All kinds of stuff. I think we have cool possibilities with that.
Yeah, I mean, hard jobs as well. Maybe you get lucky and get like an MK2 proc or something like that. You never know. No, I agree. And I think relating to the MK2 guns, being a bit harder to find or just to get, the MK1 guns, we're getting a script cost now per gun, at least and that's going to scale up and up and up as we go up the rarities. And the MK1 guns offer a kind of like a budget almost, a slight decrease in performance, but you're not going to be spending so much script and so much money at the same time.
Sure.
And with the new money sinks and stuff like that, with the new ammo types and other stuff, like that'll definitely be a good option for both sides of the coin, really. You've got your main players who are grinders and they can afford to maybe run the better guns, but then still they have to dial it down a bit and maybe stick to the regular version or the MK1 version. So, no, I definitely see the intentions there. And, when you do release a new gun, it technically means then, like you said, if you release like a new DMR, for example, you've got another 2 or maybe even 3 versions that you can release alongside of it. You've got the MK1, MK2, and maybe like a unique variant out there in the world. I mean, I've always pushed for this personally.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we can, and I think the coolest will for the future will be once we start making these variations have more identity. Like, let's say you find a Maelstrom that is already the DMR version of the
slug.
Maelstrom.
Yeah.
It already has pre-installed slugs. It already has a 2x scope. That would be so dope. And it's got maybe a silencer pre-installed on it.
Yeah.
And you cannot remove these. Modifications, and it's like that's the identity of the gun. It's technically still a Maelstrom, but plays completely differently.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I know that some people as well have been asking for extremely rare, hard to find variants of current strong guns that only drop in raid. And one idea that I had pitched was now God help us all if this happens, but a scoped hammer, only droppable in raid, very very hard to find.
Only if we call it the scammer.
The scammer, nice. Okay, all right. Scammer,
just on I love the Far Cry games did a lot of like heavy hitting revolvers with like 2x scopes on them. And
yeah.
So, big fan.
I know that if we had the ability to put a scope on the hammer as it is right now, everybody would use it. I know that for a fact.
Because it literally fills that gap of like missing DMR, feel in our game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
our roster.
I mean, I will say as well. I mean, there are some recent games that have introduced very heavy hitting revolvers with the option to put even 8 times scopes on them, and even then they seem to be pretty viable. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, so moving on to the next thing. So I think one of the main focuses I think that Jaeger were pushing for in season 3 was improving the FTUE, which was the for those of you who don't know what that is, the first time user experience. So new players dropping in, go for the tutorial, go through the missions and stuff like that, kind of get introduced to everything. So obviously you have tweaked a lot of the campaign missions. Like for example, you mentioned the Lagoon one. That's not creature kills anymore. You have to go find a drone instead on top of the cluster of buildings in the middle. What are you most proud of when it comes to the FTUE, and what are the main kind of things you were trying to achieve of it moving forward?
So just a small disclaimer, like FTUE was not the FTUE per se is really just like the term we use for like the first 1 mission, 2 missions.
Yeah.
So that got improved a little bit that got affected a little bit by my pass on campaigns, but it wasn't like the primary focus.
Of course.
I just looked at first half of the campaigns overall. But one thing that I cared about a lot is that especially early on in the player's progression, they are faced with, or they are tasked with doing stuff that doesn't necessarily rely on them extracting or surviving. So more tasks, for example, players that have played the event will know that we've started introducing search containers as a new objective type. and that's just a task. If you search your 3 industrial crates and then you die, who cares? You finished your mission. Here's a green armor.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And overall, just also the first quest line, like even the gain trust quest line, as I call it, for each of the campaigns, has also received some love. Like there's I think it's a Korolev mission. It's like the 4th Korolev mission or something that used to be also stashing something in swamp or whatever. And you now basically are tasked with going to East Collection Point, finding the nearby drop pods that were ripped open by the Howler, and then the next step is to find the prospectors that were in these drop pods, and you find them smashed onto a rock and thrown onto a train. Like that kind of stuff is, first of all, way cooler in terms of fantasy, and second of all, stashing missions are hard. Like that, I'm still happy with them for late game players because I think comfort zone. It's good to push players outside their comfort zone a little bit, but not for new players. And expecting new players to find the item, bring it in, find the item, make it out alive with it, then bring it back in. It's like that's a lot to ask from new players. So this is like one big thing that I am really proud of.
Yeah, for the good. FPV. Yeah, I think one of the most intimidating quest lines for me personally is, and I don't know if that's been changed. I'm okay with it either if it hasn't been, but the stashing the portable lab in Green's Prospect, that one always terrified me, absolutely terrified me. And just going the idea of Green's Prospect as a whole, God, that was
Green's Prospect is one of those fun situations of level design intentions, maps team intentions, not super exactly the same as reality. Like I talked to level design and to maps team, and I was like, okay, how much PvP do we expect to be going on at Green's Prospect? And generally it was like, medium, and the reality is just like, holy shit, it's a Warzone. So that's something that I can address a little bit from campaign side, because it's easier to address a mission than to affect how much people go to Green's Prospect and how much PvP happens there. But it's never never going to be perfect because there's so many elements involved into making these campaigns. It's
I mean, I will say that I think one of the biggest pain points regarding any task for Green's Prospect is, I think it was at one point during your progression, especially if you're kind of leveling your factions roughly around the same time as each other, there was a lot of action at Green's Prospect, so people would just kind of sit in Green's Prospect and wait for the taskers to come. They get their task items off them, but like the ones that they couldn't carry in their safe pockets. Obviously, then that adds a layer of PvP and a layer of intensity and uncertainty. But one thing I noticed now as well is that the Howler nest there actually serves as provided the Howler hasn't been dealt with already, of course, it actually serves as like an alarm system almost. So if you hear the Howler blasting away at a nearby building, someone's in that building. So you can decide then whether or not to think, okay, do I want to go for that? Do I want to risk the item I got up stash or the quest I got to pick up? Or do I just kind of like give it a miss for this one and come back? And if the Howler's not kind of like freaking out at someone nearby next game, I can go in and do it.
Yeah. One thing that I really like about the Howler as well, what you just mentioned, is that it makes areas less campable as well.
Like,
Howler's just going to mess with everything and everyone, so it's really cool chaos.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was it's just the purpose it serves, I think is great. It keeps players kind of like moving around, and I mean, especially when it starts doing that that kind of like that like sonar detection thing when it's like in an idle state, that slows players all the way down if they don't get detected by it. Like the layers of gameplay it adds, not on just general as a whole, but questing as well. It's really cool, really cool.
Yep.
And one more thing as well, and actually, I'm pretty sure you didn't work on this as well. So, but either way, I wanted to ask you about it. The new hub, I say the new hub, the improved hub. We got a little bit of a hands on this during the PTR as well, and I think that generally speaking, the goal there was to kind of like just make the hub more lively. It feels more like a world that's kind of going on around you rather than just filled by players and a couple of NPCs. what were your main likes and about the hub, and would there be anything you would add to it personally?
I think improvements to the hub. So I can comment on this again from my personal perspective. So just my personal opinion is that improvements to the hub are cool, and I like them as well. I don't think it's the most urgent thing. I think it's something that we can kind of keep doing over time, constantly improving it. I think it's already nice if the hub, I keep saying hub as well. The prospect station, it's nice if it feels more like an actual lively town, that people live in and trade in and prepare for the next drop in. I think that's really cool, and it's really beneficial to the game. One thing that I would really, really like, which we might do at some point, it's not something we're actively working on right now, but one thing that I really like is the idea of having like a shady trader, like an NPC trader on the station that maybe gives you like a super random offers, just like Zor in Destiny, you just appear somewhere in a corner on station, and you have to basically find him, and he goes like, okay, bring me the, it's not a thing we're working on again, but the dog tags, bring me the dog tags of 8 prospectors you've killed, and then I'll give you a random gun or some shit like that, or today, just for the next like 12 hours, every data drive that you give me, I'll give you 5 times what the factions would pay you. That kind of stuff. To create urgency, make a reason for players to log in. That's something that I would be just personally really excited about. And apart from that, I think more social features would be cool. Like I really like the idea of clans in the future at some point. Or like some way of like basically signaling, yo, I'm looking for help, like a job board where you can post your current mission and you're looking for help with that mission, something like that. All that kind of stuff would be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, Seiko could do something that Battlestate do regarding the Sherpa program, and maybe like a veteran program where they, if they fill, let's say like a job request or something, like, hey, I need this help with this mission, can you help me? They can get like rating points or like a unique cosmetic and stuff like that. Never know. Like the opportunities there for social interaction and social bolstering will be really, really cool. And regarding the random trader, it's funny because I actually suggested something a while ago that served a very similar purpose, but with the cultists specifically. Maybe like an NPC related to the cultists, and he's kind of like this mysterious figure that fights cultists and stuff, and he wants only the most seasoned prospectors to kind of bring him in, like proof of them defeating prospectors, or and then they give them a certain kind of currency in exchange. The currency can be used for maybe like to the random barter options. Maybe he'll have like a portable lab, like 10 of these items, or maybe even like attachments and stuff. And then, or the player would then have a choice of ignoring that or pushing towards a really cool, unique, like Cultist Slayer skin or something, like.
Yeah, for sure.
So like stuff like that, more stuff like that would be great.
Yeah, what I like about barter trades is that they don't have to follow any sense of logic or any rationale. Like a crafting recipe for an armor needs to make some sense. Like it would be weird. It would be weird to deliver to use 10 mushrooms to create a Zeus beam or something. But if there's a weird barter trader that's kind of a shady person on station, and they're just like, hey, bring me those mushrooms, I'll give you this beam. That works, and players are gonna love it. And we have so much potential, like just controlling stuff. But again, this is just something that I would find cool. It's not something we're working on right now.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I think that the majority would appreciate that. So yeah. So one more thing as well when we go to the next question, the next segment. So obviously we're getting we've had a couple of times these pre-wipe events. We've had a couple of seasonal events over the course of season 2 as well. We've had the Monster Mash one, and then we got a bunch of cool skins from that. That was a cool like little community goal to work towards. To your knowledge, in your opinion, yada yada yada. Would we be seeing more of these events, perhaps on a bit slightly smaller scale, throughout bit more consistently throughout the length of not just season 3, but further seasons beyond. Like these events could be maybe increased drop rate of certain thing during a storm cycle. Maybe it could be crash drop pods or even crash drop ships that leave behind a ton of loot and stuff like that. Like, what would you say is the general vibe regarding that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for our production team for what we have officially planned, but
Yeah.
I think this kind of stuff is going to be even more important that we do it without a wipe cycle, because events are going to be one of the magical ways to really keep things fresh, and really, keep players coming back, keep players logging in, keep players creating content, give people like you, streamers, stuff to show, and funky times to have.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna, if anything, my personal guess is that we're gonna crank up the efforts in that aspect by quite a bit, because so far, like even the Storm Divers event has been, even though I'm really happy with it from a design perspective, in terms of what is possible with the cycle, it's nowhere near what we could do. We can do way bigger stuff and way cooler stuff if we're not, super busy fighting cheaters, and at the same time also putting out a new season, and then doing an entire economy overhaul at the same time. So I think it's going to be bigger and better and cooler than ever before.
That's enough for me, man. That's enough for me. I mean, like I said, I think these things are vital to the longevity of a no wipe game. I think that you Jaeger definitely know that too. I know that's something that we've been bringing up a lot as partners and stuff like that throughout the majority of season 2 too. So yeah, definitely. I mean, that's good to hear. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. So
do you want to hear an idea for a cool event that I would really love to do someday?
Go on then.
I would love to do like a fake faction war that is only for the duration of that event. So I would love it if players logged in and all of a sudden satellites have crashed all over Fortuna.
Yeah.
That have just been swirling around the space this whole time, and now because the storm, the gravity has changed or some shit like that, they start crashing into Fortuna again. And it's old satellites from before the storm. It's from the old world, so to speak.
Yeah.
And players can claim them in the name of a faction that they chose beforehand, or they chose in the moment, or something like that.
Yeah.
And essentially, the factions will reward you for fighting over these satellites for them. I would love doing something like that. How exactly we would do the reward structure so that players don't feel like they're missing out on something, of TBD. But I would really love to do something like that someday.
I think that would be really cool. I mean, like I said, it's just more stuff to do, but it also kind of that sense of urgency again. Like, oh god, which faction do I want to pick this time? Or who would I want to go with first? Then before I'm locked in. Not to mention too, I mean, that could open up some really cool branching story of it, story quest lines for pre-storm when Fortuna was at its peak, at its prime, and getting these tidbits of story. Maybe you can review in the codex or something like that. I'm a sucker for stuff like that. I love when it builds the world and everything. So yeah, I think that'd be cool, man. I'd love to see that in the game, 100%. And it would be cool at some point, maybe just seeing one of these satellites dropping on a prospector's head. Ideally, my teammate Bambas. Ideally,
we'll definitely make sure that at least one satellite drops on Bamba.
Definitely, thank you. Just don't even don't even do it. Just spot it on top of him, and then that's fine. Then
I'll steer it myself.
Right. Okay, so before we move on to the community questions, there is one more thing I'm going to ask you about. Once again, I don't think you can give me a proper answer right now because I don't think there's a proper system in place for it. But one thing a lot of us want to kind of just kind of know about, and obviously we'll be patient because it's still being worked on. And I'll ask you this as more of a personal point as well. Optional wiping or prestiging and stuff like that. So obviously, regarding the extraction style game we're in, it's not like we could prestige like we could do in Call of Duty. There's a lot more going on. One of the points I think Vasco brought up especially, and many others too, is that, what's to stop someone from just prestiging and then getting all their stuff dropped to them again by a teammate? What are and that's just one of them, what are the main kind of like challenges you think we need to overcome with this optional wipe system before we can get the ball rolling on that, generally speaking?
So first of all, who's Vasco?
Well, I know we know Vasco's mum. I know that.
Yeah,
I know
shout out
that.
to Vasco's mum, by the way.
Yeah.
No, so I think that building so first of all, I want to say I'm in favor personally of a self-wipe system. Something like that would definitely be cool because it doesn't have it's not detrimental to anyone else's experience. It doesn't make my experience any worse if you decide to reset your progress.
Yeah.
So why not? Fundamentally, I don't think it's that difficult to design the fundamental structure, how it works. To address, for example, what you just mentioned, people resetting their stuff and then getting everything dropped for them again. One possible solution to that would be to say that when you do self-wipe, everything in your stash as well as every mission you've completed gets accumulated into sort of a certain prestige XP or something like that.
Yeah.
So you can drop all your stuff, but then your wiping is going to be much less progress. It's a non-benefit to drop it to yourself again because you're just moving progress from one prestige to your next. So that's one way of going at it. But honestly, we have some really, really good designers on the team. Alexei is doing a fantastic work. So I'm not too worried about designing that kind of stuff. I guess for me, the big question would be what can we promise players as a reward for, or as an incentive to self-wipe. Yeah, and that I don't know, the cool, unique cosmetics that you can only get through that, or I don't know, maybe there's a fucking tiny. Maybe at some point we make a tiny PvP arena map that you can only access if you've wiped at least once, or I don't know, something like that. That's the bigger question for me. I don't think that fundamentally it's that difficult to design the mechanic. But what do we give players? And also, is it the most urgent thing for us to be working on? Because is retaining people who've already sunk 200 hours, 300 hours, 500 hours into the game, is that our main problem at the moment as a game, as a product?
Yeah. I respect that viewpoint as well. At the end of the day, and I do think that sometimes it's easy to kind of forget that there are players aside from from us, the people have been been grinding our asses off and been here since CB1 and stuff. There are other players aside from us, and there is a more holistic viewpoint that has to be taken in. I mean, I would say personally that I would prefer the optional wipe system to come in when it's ready and fleshed out, rather than just okay, well, people want it, so here it is. You know what I mean, right? I'd rather that happen. I've always been of the mind that if there are any delays or whatever of any game or patch or whatever, as long as the time is well spent, as long as it comes out as well polished as it can be, I'm fine with whatever delays there are going to be. But yeah, I mean,
it's a very, very nice to hear as a game dev that players have this opinion.
Well, I mean, I've seen what happens, when things are pushed out, man, and it felt like we had this really long streak with all these cool looking games that had really amazing trailers or gameplay segments, stuff like that. And then when they came out, they just weren't ready. So they flopped. They just completely died where they were. And then you look at games like, I think this is the shining standpoint of doing good after a game delay is Doom Eternal. The game got delayed, I think, by, I want to say half a year. I don't know for sure. I know it was delayed at least 2 or 3 times. I know that for a fact. And there was a lot of worry about it because it was during COVID and stuff and, or post-COVID. And people were worried, oh God, they're delaying the game. What's it going to be like? But they spent the time delaying, polishing it, and it ended up being one of the best FPS games of its kind, I've seen both sides of the coin. I have seen it when devs, sometimes do milk the time, and they take it. I'm looking at you, Valheim, looking at you. But I've also seen the other side, man, in it, and I never believe in rushing devs. I would prefer the systems to come out done and completely finished. So yeah, the system will come out when it comes out. I'm happy to hear that there's already a lot of brainstorming going on around it anyways. But yeah, I mean, cool cosmetics, cool like little PvP arenas that we can only access. Stuff like that is already getting, you know, us long-term players excited, for sure.
And as I said, like, so first of all, nothing I just said is what we're planning. It's just my current brain farts. And also, as I said, we're just going to make sure to listen to the community, whatever we do. So stay tuned.
Definitely. Yeah.
Keep the feedback coming. That's really important.
I mean, that's it. You know, like at the end of the day, guys, we just need to keep reporting these systems back via the Discord, via tickets and stuff like that. Just make sure you're doing your part. At the end of the day, you know, these massive games that we all know and love, you know, the only reason why they became so great is because they had a community who gave them lots of feedback and reported a lot of this stuff back to the devs. So, you know, we can do the same with Cycle Frontier. We can do the same. Let's start. One more thing, and then before we move into the community questions. So, once again, in your opinion, it's very political, isn't it? Regarding season 3, I think we know that the main goal that Jaeger want to work towards is securing this no wipe format. What are if you were to kind of like guess, or at least kind of like with an educated guess, what were the main goals, or what are the main goals, sorry, of season 3 moving forward? Take away the new content, take away the new stuff. What are the main goals into kind of like securing the future of the game regarding season 3?
I think a big part is sort of regaining player trust after the issues we had in season 1.
Yeah.
That's obviously a big theme for us because our anti-cheat is, and as well as our server infrastructure, etc., is really, 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 really good now and really effective and really stable and reliable. Like we probably do more to address these things than any other game I'm aware of right now. So now it's all about just showing that we are a high quality game, that you can have a good time. We still deliver on our product mission. You know, we're still inaccessible, or like we're still a high stakes, you know, extraction style shooter that, you know, that brings this charm to a wide audience, but without having to study ammo charts all night or study ballistics in order to figure out how to how to deal damage to people.
Yeah.
You know, I think I think it's just about reminding people and proving to people that we are a high quality free to play game, and that we will constantly work, as long as the game is live, we will constantly work to improve every aspect of it for every single player out there. I mean, there's so many quality of life features we're adding in season 3 that I can't even remember them all right now, from custom loadouts to the loadout presets to the free loadout runs. You know, so many things that aren't even part of the general marketing. You know, we're not really advertising that much. It's not going to be on key art or anything. It's really just the whole game is better in every single way. So tune in for season 3.
Call me on March 29th, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I will say, and I think when it comes to stuff like this, especially, you know, I think a degree of remaining objectional is important. And coming from an objective standpoint, season 1, you know, I think was a good season. It was just the good part of it was just completely drowned out by the cheater infestation.
Right.
But season 1, I think lasted for about was it 4 or 5 months? I can't remember now. So, I don't think it was longer than half a year, but either way, I think it was like 3 or 4 months. But then season 2 came around, and in the span of, and I have said this to any person talking about Cycle or other game and stuff like that, is that within half a year, Jaeger turned a massive infestation, a really big problem, and they completely turned it up on its head. You know, we went from seeing cheaters every single game to suddenly seeing them maybe once every or twice every week. You know, we got the trusted versus untrusted lobbies. We got Hyperion. That's its own thing. We got all sorts of improvements to the internal anti-cheat systems, better sync up with Battle Eye, and once again, and I will die on this hill. The fact that Jaeger innovated during this really intense time and came up with a cheater compensation system. That to me spoke a lot about the priority and goal of you guys. You know, that didn't need to be done. How many games have had cheater problems out there before in like our entire times gaming, and we've never seen anything like that before. And I think maybe 1 or 2 games maybe did like report bounties where if you got a cheater banned, then maybe you got like a small reward. Maybe, I don't know, but in the extraction genre at least, I've never seen it before. And the cheater compensation system was just something that didn't need to be done, but it was done because you guys wanted to generate good faith. Season 2 came around, and the cheat problem was effectively gone. They were still there, like any popular game is going to have, but you guys have the tools in place now, and the foundations in place to really keep building. And I know for a fact that that's going to keep growing even more with Season 3. And then obviously with Season 2, then it was like, okay, so the cheater problem is like not masking any of the problems anymore from Season 1. Let's start working on the problems in Season 2. The gun balancing, ammo balancing, map balancing and stuff like that, all those out of bounds spots, all the exploits, yada yada yada, all that stuff. There's been a lot that's been ironed out, and I think that like you said, I mean the goal that you wanted to improve the experience for all players. I think generally speaking now, by this point, that experience is going to be pretty pristine coming up for Season 3 because of because the entirety of Season 2 spent sorting this stuff out. And I'll say something as well, I mean, I've not seen very many dev teams work and release as many patches as Jaeger have done reliably. I know the thick of it, we got a patch like every 1 or 2 weeks, because you guys are working that hard. I mean,
it's a really good company to work for. Like I keep saying my favorite thing about Jaeger, and this goes for like what happens internally, like towards employees, as well as for players. My favorite thing about Jaeger is that everyone just works tirelessly and endlessly to improve things for everyone on all fronts. It's just this eagerness to increase the quality of our product constantly, and I love that. Big fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us are as well, man. 100%. Right then, so now for time for the part where it all breaks down. It's time for the community questions. If you haven't already, I have posted on. I've already selected some questions from on Twitter and Discord. However, I will be picking a couple of questions from chat right now, related to this topic, which is going to be like kind of like game design and stuff like that. So I will pick a couple of them. So if you guys want to do me a favor now and tag me in chat with your questions, once we work through the Twitter questions, I'll pick a couple from chat. So start thinking of stuff that you want to ask me, and who knows, maybe I'll ask it. But let's move on to the first community question that comes over from Twitter. So this comes from Vintores, who actually has a big history with the cycle like myself. He actually got me into the game for a start. So obviously we've got hit markers and stuff like that. We've got damage values and stuff in the game. Vintores asks, is there a possibility of maybe at some point where you can enable or disable it, damage number pop-ups when you're shooting a creature or a prospector?
Yeah, so that's not really my sector, so I would have to. I can't say anything here with confidence.
Of course, yeah.
Everything I say with a grain of salt. But I don't see a big reason why it couldn't become like an optional thing at some point. I guess it's always a question of how arcadey we want to be,
Yeah.
How much we want to put between the player and the world, because everything we add like this, at least if it's enabled by default, it kind of hurts. It can very quickly hurt immersion and stuff like that. So it needs to be really justified. But yeah, I don't see a big reason to not enable something like that as optional in the future.
Yeah.
But again, just I'm not on that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We are getting. So I don't know if this is public news already, but if not, then I'm leaking. Whatever. We are getting a new combat designer soon. So
right.
Some new some improvements and a little bit more attention to the overall combat in the game.
make sure you give me his phone number. I've got plenty of things to ask him.
There's no chance in the world.
But yeah. So like, I mean, damage number pop-ups. I think that's I can't remember which game it was. It might have been. I can't remember what game it was. It was like an open world kind of game. But there was the option of retaining your immersion if you wanted it, and by default the numbers were disabled. But then you go into the options, and if you were really curious about how much damage you did do to a player or a prospector, just to get kind of like really get the damage numbers down right. And for this, I guess for the sake of clarity, it would help kind of ease prospectors' minds too, I guess. But the option of having it there would be pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, it's not a yes or a no, but it's a maybe. Yeah. Right there. So that's that question done. This one is asked by he's known as Unknown. So whoever you are, unknown.
He's not known.
He's not known, but you know, in a world of clout chasing, who can really argue with him? But yes, Unknown 1250570 asks, could you name all the things you have changed or implemented to make the solo experience better for Season 3? Or at least a couple of things.
So, also not something that I've been looking into at all. The only thing that I'm aware of right now is I'm pretty sure that matchmaking is being changed for Season 3 to be solos only on Bright Sands. Like, if you're a solo, then you only drop with solos. That's going to have a big impact, at least for new players. Like, I think once you're down in the depths of Theris, I don't care if you're a solo personally. Like, get destroyed by a trio. Who cares? It's part of the game.
Yeah.
But at least new players, I think, will benefit from this. That's the main thing I'm aware of. And also overall, the Howler is easier to lose to shake off if you're a solo, stuff like that. And as part of the campaigns, these tasks I added are also way easier to complete for solos. Not easier to complete compared to trios, but where it was way harder for solos in the past, now it's maybe just a little bit harder.
Yeah.
For a trio.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the matchmaking tweaking we've seen on Bright Sands, I think for the most part has been received pretty well. I think for the fact that it's a starter map, it should be the case, and I do feel like as well, it got to the point in Season 2 where the Bright Sands essentially became the PvP map. Like all the 3-mans and duos went there, and unfortunately, some of the new players who just wanted to kind of like run their 2-mans or 3-mans, or even just solos, if they got lucky, run into a duo. Even then, sometimes it's just kind of like impacted their experience a bit. So, yeah, MMR change is always good.
I mean, the sad truth is that Bright Sands is just too good of a map,
It's
just too fun to go there.
It's a good map. It's a good map, man. Yeah. It's a good map.
God damn you, Tsuji.
Right then. Okay, so this question comes from Psycho Blasty over on Twitter as well. Once again, you might know something about this, you might not know it. He asks, can we get separate keybinds for consumables?
I think we discussed it on and off a couple times in the past in the design team, and I think overall the attitude towards it was rather positive. There's always the question, like, how many keys do we want to give the player?
Yeah.
To worry about, because there's also the tool wheel, like that kind of stuff. But that's another aspect where I personally would just wait for the combat designers, see what they say, and rediscuss it properly. But yes, as a player, I would be in favor of it, because the amount of times that I wanted to heal in a hectic situation and I just randomly threw an audio decoy is very, I'm a bad player, but that's doesn't explain.
Yeah, a lot of the PvPers have something to say about that. They really do. I mean,
we'll improve it.
Yeah. Okay.
Just keep the feedback coming.
Yeah.
And we'll hear you.
Very good. Right then. So this question is from Bamba. It's like a little bit of a two-parter, but for the most part, what do we have to look forward to with campaigns in the future? And will we possibly be getting a Kotek faction questline?
So, I don't have any plans currently to do a Kotek questline, because if you look at, like, for example, the guns in our game, or like the gear in our game, Kotek is literally supposed to be all the stuff that is not faction.
The Walmart stuff, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, like the state issued government cheese of of gear and equipment. So just following that vibe, I wouldn't make it necessarily Kotek, but I 100%. I think it's going to be so much more important in a non-wiping economy that I add more quest lines. Like I was already at the point with in season 2, like I couldn't add more quest lines really, because already the problem was that there's so much to do in our game that many people wouldn't even experience all of it. You know, I looked at the data, how far people get in the campaigns, and a lot of them didn't even finish them, or it even got like halfway or a third and then got stuck or something. So, but now I'm free to just add quest lines. Like the Badham quest line is coming in season 3. That's pretty exciting, and in theory, we could establish Badham as like its own proper faction, and you can gain reputation with Badham, and he just gives you quest lines that are just, I don't know, something along the lines of Badham is actually he's actually spying on the factions because the factions have been up to no good, doing some really shady shit, and then Badham just gives you like a super PvP heavy quest line of just kill a ton of players. and like that's definitely possible, and then you sabotage the faction stuff. You sabotage people doing the dungeon, you sabotage people, you kill people on the laser duel to as a narrative of Badham wants to fuck with the factions.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, totally possible. I also think that if we do something like if at some point we do something like the weird shady trader NPC on the station, like why wouldn't he have some quest lines for you every now and then? Like I think we have endless possibilities, and yes, I definitely want to add more quest lines, because considering just how much people love the quest lines and the unique missions and just having this stuff to do, I think it's really, really good content to add.
Agreed. 100% agreed. So one more question from Mamba. This is I didn't get this at first, and he explained it to me, and then I understood. When do we get the penny shot modifier for the trench gun?
I don't know. I'm not a one, but you can tell him that it's supposed to make it more unreliable at distance. It doesn't matter what his what his. No, it's a mod in
yeah.
Hunt Showdown. We play Hunt sometimes.
Yeah. I only played Hunt a little bit. I didn't get that far, but when he told me about it, I was like, do we want this in the game? This sounds scary. You know what I mean? Like,
no, we don't.
Yeah. Right then. So let me pull a couple of questions from chat. So let me just scan through. Awesome. Right, we got some good ones here. So I'll get this one from Scraticus first. And this is a very, very important question. I think that this definitely will rack your brains a bit. Would you rather fight a Crusher-sized Leafling or 100 Leafling-sized Crushers, both without an evac ship?
I thought I was forgetful, because Scrat already asked me that question once on an interview.
Did he really?
Yes, I would 100% rather fight the 100 Leafling-sized Crushers. So I just stomp them. Just kick them into the upper atmosphere.
But what about those rocks, man? They're going to start hurting after a while.
They're pebbles. They're pebbles.
What if one hits your eye? I don't think a grey shield can help you out there,
We need prospector eye protection. We need glasses.
Glasses, dude. Yeah.
Slot in the loadout where you can just put like Ray-Bans.
Right, yeah. Well, there you go. Apparently, it's tradition according to Scrat. So there you go. There you go. That's your reason. I've got one from Vasco here as well. You could probably tell me a little bit maybe about this. It might be your department, but let's have a look. Did the armor crafting recipes change to be harder to craft? Do you
know? For season 3, yes. We changed them, ranked them up a little bit.
Very good. But that's it. That's all we want to know. That's fantastic. Thank you.
And most importantly, maintaining your armor, like repairing, is going to be harder than in season 2.
Yes, I know that you guys are strongly contemplating the armor degradation system that we've been kind of pitching for a bit. So yeah, I mean, that, once again, that'll. I assuming that'll probably come a bit closer to when Theros unlocks, but well, yeah.
Yeah, armor degradation, like a proper degradation. So every time you repair the armor, the max durability goes down a little bit. That's not going to happen for it's not going to be in season 3. I don't know if it's going to be in a patch anytime soon. But it's definitely something we want to do, or something along those lines. We definitely want to do. For now, the main thing we're looking at is just the general durability of armor and the repair cost, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, sounds good. Right, we've got another one here from. This is actually his name. I'm not being mean. Stupid Doggy. Will a disabled crosshair feature appear in the future for players that don't want it, so no in-game crosshairs at all?
We talked on and off a little bit back in the day. We talked on and off about like modular UI, a modular HUD that you can toggle like all of our HUD elements on and off as you see fit. Right now, I'm not aware of any plans. I would be totally down for it because it's anything that makes the game prettier to look at, and you're essentially just handicapping yourself, if anything. Sure, I'm all for it. Only thing I'm aware of right now is that I'm pretty sure we have a hide UI button.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
I think a hide HUD button. So it's not the same thing, but for now, maybe play around with that if you want to like take nice screenshots or stuff like that. Maybe that helps.
Although I'm going to miss the binos and the hiding UI. I'm going to miss that. That was a good time.
Binos and hiding UI?
Yeah, so what we would do more often than not is so we use the binoculars and then we press the hide UI button and it would you get all the zoom, but you wouldn't get like the lens effect, I guess you could say, looking through the binoculars and stuff like that. I've heard that's been changed for season 3. I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss that. Fair enough. Right then. So let's see if we've got another one or two. Let's have a look. All right. This is the. I think that we're going to end on this question. It's a good one to end on. Why is Rumble so hot?
I don't know. I think you have low standards.
Oh, shit.
No, I hear that a lot. Apparently, I have a fan club in. K-pop.
I was going to say, I think you've got a pretty good following there, man. So hey, listen. If you want to do like a stream instead of a sub only chat, I think it'll be very successful. So
Yeah, I've already said, like, if Cycle becomes like a smash hit world success, and we take the games industry by storm, I'll set up an OnlyFans and start posting feet pics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I still have a bet with some of our mods that if the Cycle stays in the top 10 on Steam, CCU wise, for like a week or something like that, then I have to do a stream from the Jaeger office in a shoulderless cocktail dress. I stand by that. I have zero ego when it comes to that.
If there was any reason to go out and tell your friends to install the game for season 3, that is your reason right there to do it. that right there. Yeah. So please make sure you talk about that. Everybody in chat.
Tell your homies.
Yeah, tell your homies. Absolutely. Right then. Okay, so I think we'll leave the community questions there. Good one to end on. First things first, Rumble, thanks for taking the time out of your day to come and hang out with me, man. Thank you for just being really, really great with the answers, man. You've been an absolute pleasure to interview. I know you said you've got a bunch of meetings throughout the day, so hopefully they all go well. If there was anything you wanted to talk about, plug, anything like that you wanted to kind of like finish us up on, go ahead. Like if it's the season 3 match date, or if it's just like anything you want to just kind of like finish up on, closing thoughts, it's your time, man.
Yeah, no, I don't really have anything to plug. The only thing I want to say is that we're going to launch season 3 on the 29th of March. Tell all your friends, tell your family, and check out the game. It's free and really, really good. And I'm totally unbiased here.
Totally unbiased. But yeah, I mean, there you go. So that was my interview with Rumble, game designer on the Jaeger team. like you said, season 3 is going to be dropping on March the 29th. So make sure you get your days off work booked off now before it gets too late. And that is a good question, actually. What time do you know it's going to drop at, Rumble? One more question, sorry. You know any of the time?
I think so. Take this with a huge grain of salt, but I think we always try to we do most of the like closing the gates, blah blah blah, opening the gates. We do most of that around noon Berlin time.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I don't know if that is assuming everything goes well, and sometime around like the early noon, early afternoon in Berlin time is what I am used to. I don't know if this goes for this time as well.
Yeah. So generally speaking, free up around noon, and if you're in America, get up early. It's going to be an early start for you. And with that being said, guys, we are going to leave the interview there. Once again, Rumble, thank you for coming out and hanging out with me. I'm just going to sign off real fast, and then, yeah, guys, I really appreciate you all stopping by. Until next time, take it easy, have a nice weekend, and get plenty of sleep in for Season 3, because I know I'm going to be up all night. Take care, stay safe, love you all, and peace.